Hi, my name is Nene Patino, and I'm going to be reflecting on task 9D, right? So, the proficiency scale and the standards that I used were the ELP, English Language Proficiency Standards, and the scales reflect what an L student at a proficiency level of 1 through to 5 can do. Okay. The goal is for the student to be able to show level of proficiency in English. However, many students um, are going to be able to accomplish those proficiency levels at different rates, even if the goal is for the student to move up one level in the semester or in the year. We know through research that students acquiring a language will take up to 5 to 7 years to acquire that language fully. We also know that students will acquire social language faster than they will acquire academic language. We also know that students' background experiences affect the level of language that they are able to perform. They can be listening and having that receptive skill developed because listening is the first skill that the student is able to acquire. But the other skills, first is listening, then reading, excuse me, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, with the last one being writing. So a teacher using these proficiency scales would need to know that the process for English language learners will be very different for students according to their age and according to their experiences, according to the exposure to English that that student has in the home. It is also determined about for the students' willingness to learn, right? If a student has challenges learning, it's going to be a little bit longer for that student to acquire language. If the student is very disciplined and is engaged in school, then he will be able to demonstrate more of that proficiency. So, on the side of the teacher, these proficiency levels are demonstrating what the student should be able to do, looking at the DOK levels 1 through 4, where the level of rigor is increasing based on the content. So these proficiency scales for ELP are also in line with the ELA, science, and math standards that the students should be able to do, implementing all of the language domains for the student to be successful at different levels. The proficiency skills also assess the skills quarterly. So when I do my evaluation of the students at the end of the quarter, I am taking into consideration all of my formative assessments, whether they are oral or in written form. I'm looking at the student's level of comprehension in English. I'm looking at their vocabulary and their grammar, their syntax structure. I'm using the sentence frames that here on the scales refers to with prompting and support. So the teacher needs to understand that the students will have an entire year of working on these skills throughout the different units that they're presenting in content, and that the students' level of proficiency is going to be different for an emergent reader, a newcomer student. Like I have newcomer students in my classroom. I also have students that are new, maybe 2 or even 3 years, and they're also considered newcomers because they're still acquiring that level of proficiency in their language. We're also in these scales able to demonstrate different cognitive abilities for the student. Some students are able to show cognition in, let's just say, comprehension, for example, in their native language. And so then they already have those skills, and it would be an easy transfer just to acquire the language and be able to use their already known skills, or developed skills, better said, to make a connection with the language. Now, for a student that comes in on K1, 2, even third grade, these scales really help the teacher to understand where she needs to do some reteaching, where she needs to do extension activities, so that the student is able to reach those proficiency levels based on the different activities that that student is able to do. They will need to have these activities with the support of the teacher for that explicit instruction, and then do a gradual release when the students is able to demonstrate their skills and understanding of what the expectations are for each of them on the scale for each of those points. Now, we know that the student is going to have within the proficiency scale the opportunity to show growth from a level 1, because that is the basic understanding of the child. Now, when we look at the at the matrix, the L should be able to demonstrate knowledge on grade level. And so throughout the year, the student is demonstrating what they can do on vocabulary, on grammar, right? And so forth, so that we continue to provide rigorous instruction and not water down any of the curriculum that the student needs to have, but they would probably need some more support. So scaffolds with more visuals. And in this proficiency scale, we're looking at what the students should be able to do with the help of the teacher. So it's an oral and a written sequence of, or progression of skills that the students are able to do. Um, so the conversation that the teachers would have is to look at these proficiency scales and look at the ELP standards and their content standards to create the rigorous learning experience for the student, but also understand that the purpose of the proficiency scale is to see what the student knows and what they need to know from your instruction, and then have an opportunity to reteach when you're looking at the assessment and the performance task that the teacher should be creating with their grade level team, right? So when we're looking at the proficiency scales, it really does show how the students will continue to show mastery in their language level. It also shows the progression of the skills. It is demonstrating that they should be doing DOK comprehension activities, like summarizing. They should be able to express, they should be able to explain, they should be able to talk about a claim, which are all content specific instructional outcomes that the students should be able to do. And as they continue to go in their grade level and in their language level, whether it be 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, right, to show from emergent to advanced, then the scales also show the capacity and the capability and the skills that the student should be meeting for grade level expectations and mastery. And so the proficiency scale is a way to keep a track of the student success for each of the instructional goals for a unit, or it could be in phonics if it's a student that is on the lower grades, or if it's upper grade students that need different kinds of support. So it helps the student know, this is what I'm expected to do. Perhaps today I'm not going to be able to reach it, but they know that that is the expectation and that is what they're working towards. When the student has that conversation with the teacher and they know what the proficiency scale is referring to, then it holds them accountable for their learning and their participation, and it helps the teacher have a more focused and structured conversation with the student, creating new goals when they reach that level of proficiency. And it boosts the confidence of the students when they know what they should be doing and what they're working toward. And so it is successful for the student and for the teachers, but it also is an opportunity to have that conversation with parents when the parents know very clearly what the teacher is expecting and what is expected of the student at their language level, so that everyone is working on the same premise, that this student is capable of doing this particular activity. It'll just be at their learning level, at the level of their capability, and it helps the teacher know where to focus, do small group, and really to assess the student's work more effectively, so that the student knows if they're not reaching that particular goal, they know why they wouldn't be too successful, why they didn't get what would be a passing score, or why would they, always have a very low score. But they know exactly what to do in order to get that higher score on a particular test, because, or an assessment piece, because they're able to do these particular skills. And so for me as a teacher, I use them considerably, and it helps me to keep my focus and just remember what the students are able to do, um, and do successfully, so that they can continue engaging in more challenging tasks um, that will help them across content areas, independent of whatever grade level they're in, because these standards and these proficiency scales can be used um, for any student who is a language learner. And I hope that I answered, or I explained myself clearly. And thank you.